In this tutorial, we're going to finish hooking up the equipment panel by adding validation logic to prevent items from being equipped in the wrong slot. But what's really great about this technique is that you're going to learn how to create custom properties that can show up in UI Builder, which really streamlines the workflow for UI designers. Be sure to grab the starter project from the GitHub repo to follow along. A change from part 5 is that the equipment screen now has an equipment slot visual element that is inheriting all of our inventory slot logic, including the drag and drop behavior. Now, at this point, there's really not much that's different, but ultimately we do want to add one extra field, which is where we're going to define the item that's allowed to go into the slot. Now, there's two things that we need to do to register this visual element with UI Toolkit. The first is adding a UxmlElement attribute. This will make it so that we can use the element directly in UI Builder or even reference it directly in the UXML code. It's important to note that you need a parameterless constructor if you are going to do this. Now, next, you can add the UXML attribute to fields that you want to be editable directly in UI Builder. I'll show you both of these in Editor in a second, but first, let's finish out the code for the validation. On the inventory slot, we're just going to add a virtual method that we're going to override, which is can accept, and we'll leave that as true. This is true because inventories can accept anything. Now, over in the equipment slot, we're going to add an override, and we'll do a category check based off of what has been set in UI Builder. Now, if we hop into the item drag manipulator, we can gate the drop for the pointer up, which is going to check for whether or not the item can be accepted in a given slot. What's pretty cool is that the item drag manipulator doesn't need to know what kind of slot it just found because it's just going to perform the check. So later, if we decided to add more slots or update the categories, we could do that seamlessly. All right, there's one more thing that I want to do before we set this up, and that's add a border style to the slot, which will show up if we try to put the wrong item in it. In the item slot style sheet, we can add a new drop target invalid style. Then in the inventory slot class, we can update set drop highlight to use the invalid style if needed. Lastly, let's head over to item drag manipulator class and update the on pointer move to show it while the player is moving around. All right, now we can head into the editor and set up the slots. Here in the editor, I have the equipment window UXML open in UI Builder. The first thing that I want to show you is what the UXML element tag does. Now, down in the library section, there's a second tab called project. Anything tagged with that UXML element will show up here. You can drag and drop it into your hierarchy just like you would any built-in component. And normally you would actually see a preview of your element when you hover over, but in this case, we're loading in the UXML template for inventory slot via C#, so nothing shows up in this preview. Now, if we click on one of the slots and go to the attribute section in the inspector, we can see the new allowed category option. This is where we're going to set it for each one of the slots. Now, I'll go ahead and speed up the video so you don't have to watch me do this one by one. Now that that is done, let's go into play mode and test it out. We can see here that the head just rejected the shield, but now it takes the helmet, so that validation is working. We can't put a shield in a weapon slot, and we can see those highlights also showing up. Now, this is great, but there's two more things that I want to do before we wrap up. The first is right-click to unequip, and then I also want to show some of the 3D model depending on what's been equipped. So let's do those two things real fast. Okay, let's start with the right-click to unequip. To do this, we're going to register a pointer down event, which is going to point to the on right-click method. In this, we're going to do all the usual stuff. We're going to check for the right mouse button, and if it passes, we're going to stop propagation so that the click event doesn't go anywhere else. Then we're going to call a helper method to try and return the item. This method comes from the starter project and really just tries to find the first empty slot to put the item. Next, let's bridge the equipment screen to the 3D preview. First, we're going to add a new event to the equipment slot. And the intention here is to trigger it when the equipment changes and then send the category type along with a Boolean to indicate whether it's currently equipped or not. We're going to update hold item, which invokes the event with a true Boolean. And then drop item is really just going to do the opposite. Now, another thing that comes in the starter project is the character appearance class. This is a mono behavior that lives on the knight, and it just manages the mapping between the item category and the child meshes on the knight. In a real production game, you'd actually have a much more complicated system, but for now, this will work. Now, this class is going to listen for that equipped changed event, and then when triggered, it's going to call setEquipped method, which really is just toggling the visibility of the game object depending on the category selected. And that's it. All right, so back in Unity, I have the knight up, and we can go ahead and drop the shield onto the weapon. It still rejects. If we take it over to the actual shield slot, we can see that it's toggled on. And right now I have this as a child of the rig so that it moves with his arm. It's actually a really cool rigging package that you can use to kind of get around this hierarchy setup. But it works for now. So now we can equip the weapon. And then let's do the helmet. And we can see it all working as expected, and that's it. Oh, actually, no, that's not it. We need to right-click to unequip. Now that's really it. And that's the full series. So there's now a full reusable inventory and equipment system with drag and drop, validation, and of course the live character preview. If this helped you in any way, please be sure to hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment because that really helps the channel. And don't forget that you can get the finished project in the GitHub repo, which is linked in the description below. Thanks for watching.